Dad, welcome.
All right.
So take us back. What were you like as a child, at school, at home? I know you've got a love of cars. Handing the mic over to you.
What was I like? To be fair, I don't remember much of my childhood as such. I remember being chubby. School was always a total nightmare. Didn't like school. School didn't like me. Struggled with school all the way through school. I was pleased to leave school. People say it's the best days of your life. I put my hands together the day I walked down that school field for the last time.
Yep. Yeah, it's a similar kind of thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's because you always just want to get into work. I mean, I'm only speaking from my experience here.
No, I think there was elements of my school that where I struggled, and I didn't know why I struggled. It turns out that obviously I'm dyslexic. Didn't know. So when you're posed with challenges like, you know, go to school and you go from one year into another year and then give you books to read, and it's like, well, hang on, how come I can't this? How come I can't that? And you only realise that when you're at school and they say, right, read this. Other people around the class could read it. I couldn't. And I've had experiences all through my school and after school where it's been a real issue. You know, I've been made to look a fool in front of other people and didn't really find out until later life why. I didn't even know about being dyslexic or dyslexia and all the rest of it. So yeah, I really did struggle. But I was good at other things. You know, I used to enjoy like woodwork. Obviously that's what I've gone on to do. So you just really channel your energy into areas that you're good at. So, you know, you can't concentrate on things that you can't do because you really won't get anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain level of, if you need to be good at something, I think, like money, whatever it may be, like learning how to budget, all that sort of jazz, you kind of pick them life skills up later down the line. There's some things that you do need to focus on getting better at, but I think like science, I mean, we have a rolling joke with me with physics, but it's, you kind of ditch the stuff that you realise that you don't need, which is what the school system kind of is geared towards, is it not?
Looking back, it's quite sad really, you know, my day and age that what is easily recognised now, it wasn't a thing then. Yeah. No one knew about it. There was no help. If anything, it was, you know, you were made to look a bit of a fool. The fact that everyone, or most people, in a class of 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds going around the class could stand up and read a book, a page, and I literally couldn't. You know, people used to turn on and laugh at me when I was a kid in school.
Do you think
that's pretty cruel?
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, I was talking kind of along this lines with Webby on the last podcast, but do you take that as like a lesson in the sense that did it toughen you up in a way? Did it kind of make you into? Because the thing these days is that doesn't happen these days, because obviously you've got systems in place to pick up dyslexia, all that sort of jazz. But that, in a way, contrasts with the kind of element of being mollycoddled in a way.
Did it toughen me up? No, it didn't, because you know, how could it? I knew what I was good at, and I knew where I sucked. So the lessons where there was a possibility of having to do anything literate or like just a nightmare, you know, I'd go into maths and it'd be like, you know, ask me any question you want, give me a brain teaser, and I'll suss it. You know, I'll write it all down, I'll break it all down, I'll work it out, and I'll give you the answer. I'm not a whiz at maths, but there was things that I was good at and things that I wasn't good at. Did it toughen me up? No, I, you know, if anything, quite the opposite. It kind of, I wouldn't say it destroyed me, because it just breaks all your confidence down into, you know, you kind of a bit of a wreck going into a lesson thinking, oh God, what if the teacher asked me to spell this and spell that and spell the other and read this and write that? You know, it's just a total, it was awful. You know, it wasn't just me, there was a lot of other people.
But I think that might have, I mean, me just looking outside in, that might have steered you towards making you realise what you were good at, and then that sends you on the journey of where it got you to that now, doesn't it?
Yeah, I always knew an office job would be no good for me, even though I've ended up in an office, but kind of, you know, I used to go into woodwork, like I say, metalwork, you know, I could make anything as I can now. So later on in school, I used to skip out of, or bunk out of one lesson and go and see the woodwork teacher and, yeah, come on and just get yourself in that corner and, you know, crack on with something. And I used to make all sorts. So when I could bunk out, I used to, when I had to be there to do whatever, roll with the punches.
Yeah. I mean, that takes us nicely on to the next thing that I kind of want to touch on, which is after 30 years in business this year, if I'm correct in saying,
yeah.
What steered you towards that from school? So that period from jumping for joy for leaving school into apprenticeship.
Well, I left school on the Friday and I started my apprenticeship as a joiner on the Tuesday because it was a bank holiday. I was quite fortunate to have an uncle that worked for the council, and he worked in like the property maintenance department. He used to give the work out to builders around the town, so he knew I was interested in being a joiner. So he kind of put the feelers out to a couple of builders as if to say, there's a lad here, he's looking for a job. If you take him on, I'm sure I can put a bit more work your way. So that's, I think, really how I started in my role as a joiner. Excuse me. So yeah, that's really where my love of joinery kind of took off. Again, I used to do it at school. I used to enjoy it. Got a O-level or A-level or whatever the equivalent is or was back then. And really never looked back from there. I always enjoyed doing it. Every day was different. There was elements of literacy that you had to kind of get over, but you just stumbled your way through job sheets and things like that. But ultimately, I got to be quite good at joinery, hanging doors, skirting boards, putting roofs on, all the joinery elements. I kind of went from serving my time to working shop fitters, I worked over in Holland for a little while, came back, worked for the builders through at Stockton. That wasn't a particularly pleasant experience. The guys who we worked for used to put you down all the time, which it wasn't pleasant. You know, they used to phone you up on a job, why are you still there, blah, 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 blah. And I just thought to myself, you know what? You were an absolute idiot. You're talking to us all like dirt, and the guy said, I'll have the last laugh on yous. And he used to tell us. And I was like, you won't have the last laugh on me. So after putting up with that for a good few years, I just thought to myself, I'm going to do this myself. And I, got my tools together, bought a van, this, that and the other. I had a couple of adverts here, a couple of adverts there, and just kind of gradually built a little bit of a network up of people that used to get me to do govy jobs. The guy who I worked for wanted me to go self-employed. He paid me off and I never went back. So, whereas he thought I was going to be in work on the Monday, I took this £1,000 that he gave me and I never went back. So he didn't have the last laugh on me.
No. And 30 years later, here you are.
Yeah, 30 years. It's been a rocky road. Been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of trials, tribulations, but at the end of the day, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, so started with joinery and obviously general building works. I know this, but what did you then move into?
Yeah, well, I only ever wanted to employ myself. I only ever wanted to just have enough for me to get by. Never really wanted to employ someone of the hassle of employing anybody, but we just seemed to get busier and busier. Took a lad on. Jumping years, we were doing work for the councils again through my uncle kind of helped us into the schools. So we were doing work for Hartlepool Council, and we got into Stockton Council. Then the glazing company that I used to buy the glass off, the guy, we had a bit of banter, and he's, I'm sick of working here. And I was like, well, I can set a little glazing business up, come and work for me. So it went from joinery to Joinery Glazing. That ran for quite a few years. Then there was a roofing guy that I kind of knew. He was fed up, so it was the same old thing. So we started a roofing company, which just ended up being a total disaster, to be honest. Cost me a small fortune. Learnt a lot of lessons. Really tough time, tough financial lessons. But just get through it, roll with the punches.
I'll always remember that period of the roofing kind of saga, whatever it may be. And Mother's talked about it a few times in X, Y, and Z. And it stems from a lot of wanting to grow, from what I've kind of heard of it, and kind of thinking that's an opportunity and trialing it. So what kind of lessons, obviously you labelled it there as lessons, not failures. A lot of people would label it as a failure of losing
definitely
a lot of money.
But what is a failure?
Yeah, this is
a failure is only something where if you look back on it in 5 years and you didn't learn a lesson, there's not been many failures. All the failures have been lessons that you look back on, and I can honestly say I'm pleased. I'm pleased that there were failures then, but looking back now, it was a lesson. Because it if you stand by the side of a road and a car splashes you once, you go back to the same spot the next day and you get splashed again, move along the road, cross the road somewhere else.
Yeah, we were talking about that in a kind of similar analogy, that you can either, you go driving down the motorway, there's a pothole, you can either hit the pothole, change the tyre, or that was Webby's analogy of it, or understanding of it, mine was change lane.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to hit that pothole once, but it's about learning from that. Hitting the pothole is the failure, but do you learn a lesson from it? As in, do you learn how to change a tyre, or do you learn to change lane?
Yeah,
it's a similar kind of analogy, isn't it?
I guess it is, but kind of when there's money involved,
yes,
when there's people's livelihoods involved, it's a lot more than like changing a tyre. you know, principles still apply, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's obviously, the scale of it gets bigger. Like obviously, there's a saying out there that when you grow and when your business grows, your problems grow. And the size of your problems and the size of the risk grows in elements. Risk in the sense of, like you say, people's livelihoods. Obviously, you can mitigate risks for self, debt, all that sort of jazz. But people's livelihoods, people have mortgages, people have kids. There's a lot more kind of personal, I don't want to say, how can I word this correctly? Kind of, you've got to be humble in a way.
Yeah, you've got to have other people's interests ahead of yourself. You know, when you employ people, it's if you're just working for yourself, then you've only got yourself to think of, which, you know, that's still a big risk. But you know, looking back, I've enjoyed it, and I do enjoy doing what I do. I can't imagine not enjoying what I do. In all fairness, I mean, again, it's been tough. There's been times where it's been, you know, like this can either go one way or the other, and if it goes the way I don't want it to, it's all on me. You know, everything's on me. Obviously, in the business, there's me, Mum, other people, but I'm the one who makes the decisions. You know, what do we have? Do we advertise here? Do we go down this route? Julie's always supported me, us, and it is a team effort. It's always been a team effort, but you know, I know the responsibility is mine. But there's been very few times where I've gone to bed on a night and not being able to sleep.
I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? Making decisions that you know you're happy with and comfortable with.
Yeah, and to be fair, you've got to you can quite easily not make the decisions and just sit there and watch it all fail.
Yeah.
A couple of times when you know things are going wrong, when we were doing the joinery and the glazing and the roof, and I don't know exactly what period it was, there was a choice to make. It was, I can either let it continue and fail, and then when it fails, I would have to start again, and what would I do different? Well, I would do this different and that different and the other different. So why not change it now? And then there's a good chance it won't fail. So you've got to make some tough decisions, which sometimes involves people's jobs and letting people go, which at one point we did have to do. We shut we ran the glazing business down. We paid everybody off. We didn't like get rid of people and not pay them. Same with the joinery side. Obviously, when we when we went from our core joinery glazing into doing the toilet cubicle business that we do now, as I say, we knew that had to go. It wasn't making any money. It never made anything as such, really. We had people that we had to pay, and we did, and we're quite proud of doing the right thing by people. And you know, I'll like Anth.
Yeah.
You know, he's a good guy. I think he left to do with something else, but you know, the people that we are still in contact with from them days, you know, they'll say hello. They're still kind of friends. They respected us for doing things that we had to do. We done them right. So, you know, it was what it was.
I think that impression lasts longer
yeah, you've
than
got, you know,
the failure, the thought of the failure, doesn't it? Like in the sense that it hasn't worked.
A life lesson is you've got to do right by people.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to respect people. You've got to be nice to people. don't ask anyone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. You know, treat people right, be nice, say thank you. You know, do all the right things rather than, you know, bosses that I work for, they talk to you like shit. It's like, why would you talk to me like that?
Well, that's a different age, isn't it? I suppose. I don't know. This is one of the things, isn't it, about kind of growth and generational things. I'm quite fortunate that I've never really had a bad boss. You being one of them. Well, I don't know about that, but
Suck it up, buttercup.
But I've been quite fortunate in kind of part-time jobs and full-time jobs and kind of where I'm at now in X, Y, and Z. That I have been fortunate. Obviously, within the organisations that I've worked, there is always that toxic culture. Previous organisations, but it's a different generation thing now. You've got to treat people differently because there's all sorts of HR and all that kind of jazz now, isn't there?
Yeah.
But
you know what? It's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not being clever or not, but like that. But you know, you go into work and you know, people like thank me for like being nice, and it's like, well, why would I not be? You know, I want you to be here, to work for me, to be happy, have my best interests at heart. So I'm gonna do my best for you, because I'll get it back.
Yeah, you make people want to work for you rather than working for you because you pay the bills.
It's nice to be nice, isn't it? That's what I was taught. You know, it's just one of them things. It's nice to be nice, so be nice.
Yeah. Moving on to, you alluded to it a little bit there about kind of tough times, all that sort of jazz. Obviously you've dabbled in a little bit of property over the years, financial crash of 2008. I do believe you were I was only 8-9-year-old, you were slap bang in the middle of one then.
Yeah. The floor's mine.
Elaborate.
The floor's mine.
How did you get through it? What kept you going?
What kept me going was the fact, well, like what Webby was saying, what drives you. And he kind of hit the nail on the head. The fear of failure. The fear of failure tortures me, or tortured, when we were struggling. Because as I said, it would have all been on me. Mum was always, oh well, if it all goes upside down, we'll, you know, live in a side street house and this, that, and the other. As long as we're all together, we'll be happy. Well, yeah, we would be, but that's not where I want to be.
It's not a block thing, that is it?
That's not what you know. I don't want to fail. I don't want, you know. We want to go that way rather than that way. So that's what's always driven me. I know I'm not answering your question. Money, that's pretty irrelevant, really. As long as we are comfortable, as long as there's food, as long as I can go Tesco's and buy whatever I want. You can go to other supermarkets, of course.
Lidl for 99 protein bars.
Yeah, I like a bit of Lidl. But back to your question, telling you about them tough times. Yeah, we have a property down Seaton. We were going to extend the property, I do recall, from it being like a 3-dwelling to a 4-dwelling. So we borrowed some money from the bank. When we borrowed the money from the bank, the business wasn't doing too great, so we put some of the money from that back into the business. And I think at one point we turfed all the tenants out because we were going to totally gut the place, and everything the business was on a bit of a downward. As I say, we were putting money into that. We didn't do the extension. The bank then phoned to say, oh, you do realise that you need to pay that money back by the end in 2 months' time. Okay. And there was the financial crash at the same time. So yeah, it was pretty horrendous. Trying to get because we'd started to refurbish the properties. I think the roofing business was on its knees as well, and it was just awful. I remember one of the guys who was working with us, Ronnie, we were on our hands and knees fitting some skirting board, and he nudged us and kind of said, "Are you all right?" And I remember thinking to myself, not really, but get the skirting board on, get the wall up, crack on, get the job done. And a few years after, he kind of referred back to it. He said, "Do you remember when we were?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "That wasn't good for you, was it?" And I was like, "No, it wasn't." He said, "But you got through it." I was like, "Yeah." And yeah, I always remember that.
I remember when Ronnie retired, and Mother told us about kind of you got everyone in the workshop and whatnot, and you mentioned that about helping down Seaton and all that sort of jazz, and obviously I didn't know that. All I remember from Seaton is, I mean, like I said, I was 8-year-old. Was me and G and all of us going down on a Sunday.
We were down there on a Saturday,
yeah,
and we were down there on a Sunday doing what we needed to do to get to do the refurbishment of like the 2 flats, get them rented out, get a valuation on them so we could remortgage them to pay the bank back. We managed it. It was horrendous. I wouldn't want to do it again. that's for certain. But it's strange because, at times like that, you can either give in. You hear all sorts of stories about people doing horrible things, and looking back, I would never do it, but I can understand, think I can understand why people do it. But round the corner, there's always going to be a better day.
Yeah, when you're in the cycle.
It might be a month later, 2 months later, the next day, 6 months. There's always a better day. You look back on it, and again, it's one of me regrets. It's one of me lessons. Yeah, looking back, wasn't a great time. We got through it. We still have the property. Property's worth a small fortune. Everything's rosy.
So you alluded to it a little bit there about kind of Seaton and regrets and all that sort of jazz. On more of a personal level as well as a business sense, do you have any regrets in life? Do you see them as regrets, lessons?
The only real, looking back, regrets is when I asked Julie to marry me, was I didn't ask her dad. And obviously, Dad's not here no more. That is kind of something that I thought was old-fashioned, and I thought people had kind of stopped doing it, but apparently not. So I maybe should have. I'm sure he was all right with me marrying her. I hope he was.
Too late now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Two kids later.
two kids later, everything's worked out fine. I'm sure he'd have said yes anyway, but I really should have asked. No, that really regret. I mean, there's daft things. There's that time when we went over to Richmond to play. You were playing football, and they wouldn't let you start, and we kind of jumped in the car and drove home in a bit of a huff. Yeah. I kind of put you in an awkward position with your school friends, which
once again, that's a lesson that I kind of
yeah, I
learned
mean,
from that.
you know, would you see that as a regret? Did you learn anything from that?
I wouldn't say it toughened us up, because there was elements of being toughened up in other circumstances, which I alluded to and I'll re-allude to in a second. But it's kind of lessons on how to deal with situations. That there is a time for being bullish, and there is a time for being sympathetic,
Yeah,
and there is a time for being kind of understanding, for want of a better phrase.
I think
It's learning how to judge them
everyone's
situations.
in the wrong. What they done to you wasn't right. But we're on to something that
It's lads at the end of the day. I hold no grudges of it.
kids are horrible now. Kids are horrible. You know, well, sorry, kids are not horrible. Kids are lovely. But school, you know, girls at school, boys at school.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in school now.
No, because it's a different level of bullying now. I think, like back in, I mean, it wasn't as much in my day, but there was a kind of section of it, or a kind of element of it, where he didn't like what someone said.
Yours, I imagine, is all social media, like
This
he
is
says,
it.
she says, that photograph.
Yeah, that's what it is now.
In
Whereas
my
kind
day,
of,
it was literally face to face.
yeah, you knocked 7 bells out of them. Yeah. Which was,
And you're fat.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
And like in kind of, this is what I was saying to Webby, and I said to you a few times, I kind of caught the tail end of the older generation of growing up, in the sense that when we went through primary school, we went through kind of an element of secondary school. You didn't have all of these nice fancy phones, TikTok, Instagram, all that sort of jazz. You had a Sony Ericsson phone, which was a hand-me-down from you.
CB radio.
CB radios, we didn't really have them. They'd kind of gone out of fashion.
No,
But
right.
there was still that element of face-to-face. If you don't like us, you knock 7 belt. Like, you start throwing hands, which is what mother always reminds me of being in play school, infants knocking 7 bells out of kids when they wouldn't give us a toy.
Wouldn't give you the tractor.
Yeah. So we kind of caught the tail end of that, but now it's a different level of bullying, because it's all keyboard, not saying it face to face.
Yeah,
which is the downturn of kind of this
society.
It's my generation, but
downturn of society.
Yeah, it is, because it's a different level of how do you then deal with that, and people aren't used to being face to face with somebody when they don't like it. They kind of go into a shell. That's where this whole snowflake kind of elements come from. But moving on from that ever so slightly, we've obviously talked about regrets, we've talked about lessons. Achievements?
Achievements. My biggest achievement and pleasure in life is my family. Simple as that.
Yeah.
You know, we go on about business and 30 years in business. I would have never done it, never wanted to do it, if it wasn't for having someone to do it for.
Yeah.
Or a family to do it for. I might have still done it, but you know, being in business for 30 years coming up, yeah, it's an achievement, and you know, I'll do a post on Facebook, but it's not the be all
element to it, is there?
No, that's it. It's you know, I'm lucky that I've got a fantastic family, fantastic friends. You know, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for Julie, certainly. And also my friends, you know, Scott, when we were kids, we got up to all sorts, but you know, we always stuck by each other, and I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for him and the friendship that we had when we were, I don't know, 14, 15, 16-year-old, which we still carry through to this day. So
yeah, he's been a pinnacle in both yours and my life.
yeah, he's super.
He's a good lad. But
yeah, I feel blessed.
Yeah. This is the thing, isn't it? Like, you mentioned
you've got to have good people
Yeah.
around you.
Yeah.
If you are surrounded by idiots, you become an idiot. If you're surrounded by angry people, you become angry. You've got to be surrounded by positive people, good role models.
You're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time
Yeah.
with, aren't you? That's the saying. If you're with 5 people who are successful, you'll be the 6th. If you're with 5 people who are dossers, you'll be the 6th. Do you know what I mean? It's the product.
And it's very true.
Yeah. And it's obviously after the first episode came out, we discussed it, and it's you are the product of your environment. You can either understand that environment isn't very good and remove yourself from that environment, or understand it's good.
People can't. People don't seem to be able to.
No, I think that's what people need to learn.
You've got to learn. No, there's no learning. You either want to do it or you don't want to do it. If you are happy where you are, then you will stay where you are. If you want anything bad enough, you can achieve it.
Yeah. Well, the element of where I'm getting at is, if you want to achieve it, you've got to learn how to jump. Whether it's surrounding yourself with people, or whether it's messing up as many times that you kind of jump steps. You see the goal, you work out the small steps to get to that goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fatherhood. You mentioned family there. Kind of lessons from fatherhood, whether it be kind of granddad, your dad to you down to us. Obviously, there's me knowing there's quite a disparity there.
I think.
How's that stemmed down?
I never had a bad childhood, not by a long way, but I seem to look back and only remember the things that I didn't enjoy. And there was a lot of elements that I did, but obviously the things that stick with you are being forced to eat Brussels sprouts. I know I always refer
every
to
Christmas this is
I
mentioned.
always refer to it, but why would you? And elements like that, which I used to hate and our kids used to hate, I always thought to myself, if one day I have kids, I'm gonna remember what I didn't like about my childhood and not make the same mistakes, and try and make my kids' childhood that little bit better, in the hope that when you have kids, or every generation makes their kids' experience better than theirs.
Yeah.
And I think if people do that, then surely the world should be a better place rather than not.
Yeah, I think that's what fatherhood's all about, because I would imagine, obviously he's not here to answer this question, but I imagine that was his goal.
Yeah, I imagine his upbringing was pretty horrendous.
Yes.
And my dad made some huge sacrifices going to work away, which was one of the things which was a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because obviously it took him away from the family, but in doing that, it meant that he could provide.
Yeah. So
I always used to, over recent years, look back and think, wow, my dad was a little bit distant. I didn't have as good a relationship as I wanted to, because he wasn't there, because he was working away. So, and he probably felt that as well, which is really tough, because he was making the sacrifice to provide for us. But the consequence of that was we were never miles apart, poles apart, but I don't know, didn't really have like the bond. There was no, we go to the lakes and have a laugh. I can't remember. We'll sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'll never remember sitting down with my dad and having a conversation, which I obviously regret. But again, that was the sacrifice that he made to make my life better.
Yeah. It kind of stems down, doesn't it? I mean, the reason I said that was kind of the generational thing. Once again, it's the kind of being better, and that's what this kind of whole podcast is all about.
Well, I always thought to myself, you know, there's no way I'm going to miss out on my kids growing up.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to be working away and doing this and doing that. And luckily, you know, I've managed to provide for the family. When I say I mean obviously me and Jodie, the pair of us within the business. Because the thought of having, you know, missing this and missing that, you know, you never get it back.
No, that's one thing that we kind of spoke about. I remember this vividly. We were in Glossop when we went and did that horizontal walk, let's call it. A horizontal walk, because there was...
In a hooligan.
Nigh on 70 mile an hour winds, and I'm not just justifying that for the sake of the camera. It literally was 70 mile an hour winds. I shall click the video on top of this speech of my dad walking in front of me.
Cut.
Yeah.
Clip.
Interlude. Yeah.
We're back.
We're back. So a little clap there. And we were in the pub the night before, because we stayed over the night before.
We had a right laugh, didn't we?
We had a right laugh, and we were talking about kind of jobs at the time and kind of moving up ladders for me from where I was. And one of the reasons that I gave was someone who was in quite a high position at the organisation that I worked for at the time missed out on quite a lot of his kids' parents' evenings, all that sort of jazz. And obviously I was talking about kind of starting certain things that I've done, X, Y and Z, obviously with the vision to kind of go full time in them later down the line when something works well enough to be able to do that. And you posed the question to me of going, there's nothing better than a kind of pension, all this sort of jazz, security,
absolutely,
benefits, all that sort of jazz. And then I put the point to you of going, but you've done this self-employed gig, which is renownedly known to be difficult.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. But you've been there.
Yeah, which is why I wouldn't recommend it.
But yeah, you've attended all of them things as long as I can remember, whereas someone in this 9 to 5, inverted commas, role hasn't. And it was that kind of paradox that we chatted about at the time. But there's also an element of me understanding that all them nights kind of as a kid in the house that we lived in before we're at now, going to bed at say 8, 9 o'clock in the night when you were in school and coming down because you couldn't sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and seeing the front light on and you still sat there on your laptop grafting away. It's kind of that, when you're talking about sacrifice there, about kind of Grandad, it's there was still sacrifice, but obviously it wasn't seen by me.
No.
Until you came downstairs a couple of mornings during the week when you couldn't sleep and you were sat there typing away.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, it's been a lot of hard work. I honestly wouldn't recommend it. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone because it's
like you said, if it was easy.
If it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah. And everyone would succeed in doing it.
People kind of see you driving around in a nice car, and I don't want to talk about money and what I have and what I don't have. And they think it's easy, but you know, it's not.
I mean, you've alluded to it there, haven't you? The kind of all the failures or lessons. Being on your hands and knees, borderline in tears, putting skirting boards up, thinking it's not going to work, and then getting to where you're at now. Yeah,
but again, I'll go back to what I said, wherever you are in life, around the corner, there's always going to be a better day, a better time. Look back, what did I learn? Oh yeah, X, Y and Z. yeah, you know, I could have went one way, I could have went the other, I could have this, I could have that. There's always going to be a better day.
Yeah.
And you'll look back and you think, that was tough. What have I learned from it? Well, I've learnt this and I've learnt that. You know, I've sat in the car, I've cried before today at the position that we were in. I literally sat in the car and cried. I like a good cry. I do like a good cry. I'm not afraid to be emotional. I quite enjoy showing me emotion, as I've kind of done tonight. It's not in any way like a failing.
No, it's not.
You've got to be emotional in life. You know, no good being a tough guy, Mr. High Flying X, Y, and Z. We're all human. We all have things to deal with. But I'll go back to what I said earlier on. However low you might be today, tomorrow, next week, next month, in 6 months' time, I'll guarantee you'll look back on things and go, oh yeah, well, I was there, now I'm here, look back. Yeah, it was awful, it's a bit better. Next month it'll be better again. Yeah. Next year, hopefully it'll be even more better. Yeah. You've got to be positive.
Yeah, that's it. And if you're not, it's kind of that cycle of being, you don't get yourself out of depression by saying and thinking that you're depressed. You do something about it.
Yeah.
If you're constantly thinking, I'm depressed, no, you're always going to be depressed.
Personally, I don't suffer from depression. Yeah. Never have, hopefully never will, and I have no understanding of people's states of mind who are there. You know, I feel sorry for them because I know what I've been through, and I've always been upbeat. I've always known in a year's time, you know, hopefully things will be better. I can see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. For the people that can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bad cycle to be in.
Yeah, if you've got that mental state, then yeah, you know, tough.
This question.
Come on then.
Last question was the one that we discussed.
We did.
In the lakes. Now we can't sit and talk about it for as long as we did last time.
Well, we were
because we haven't got the time.
we did have a couple of steak and ale martinis.
Yes, we did. There's a backstory behind that. Me and my old man.
Less of the old.
Me and my old man. That's just how you refer to. We'd gone to the lakes camping, and we'd. It was when I'd kind of...
We'd participated in a few too many beverages.
Yes, we'd gone out on the lash, and I was on the black yogurt Guinness, and you were on espresso martinis. I nearly called them steak and ale martinis. And we'd had quite a fair few, and then we went for a steak and ale pie. Both of us had the steak and ale pie, exactly the same, cut from the same cow most likely. Got back to tent on the night. You were up with the shits barfing all night. I slept like a baby. So the reason we call them steak and ale martinis is because you claimed that there was something wrong with the steak pie, which I ate as well, and I was spick and span. So that's why we call them steak and ale martinis.
I don't blame the alcohol. So it was definitely the pie.
Whenever we either of us go into a restaurant or a bar and we see either a steak and ale pie on the menu or an espresso martini, we'll always take a photo of it and send it to each other to remind us of that night. Yeah. But yeah, coming back to that,
it always makes us chuckle.
Yeah, when we got back to the tent before you came down with the shots, we posed this question of the 18-year-old self's opinion, and it's what I mentioned with Webby, and this was kind of the OG conversation, and we chatted about this for 2 hours, and we can have a natter, but I don't think we've ever held a conversation that long for 2 hours without one of us being sick of the other one's opinions. But we did. So, 18-year-old self.
Would they be proud of me? Yeah, I've got to say yes. I know I was up and around, you know, playing it down before. I'm pleased with where I am. I'm pleased with what I've achieved. I'm comfortable with where I am now compared to where I was. And again, you know, I left school. I could just as say read, I could just as say write, I could just as say spell. And to get from there to where I am now, yeah, I still can't read, write and spell properly.
You don't need it.
I get by, but from where I was to where I am now, I think I've got to be, I wouldn't say proud because that's kind of blown smoke. Yeah, I think I've done all right, you know, a couple of properties here and there, business, family more than anything. I'm immensely proud of you. Immensely proud of Georgia and Mum. You know, I wouldn't be here.
Let's not downplay Mother. She's a legend.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Mum. We wouldn't be here where we are if it wasn't for Mum.
No.
So big respect to your Mum, Julie.
Mother. Yeah, I mean, it's a similar kind of answer to previous guests in the sense that you don't want to big yourself up, but you kind of answer the question in a way, and I think it's not bad to be proud of where you're at. I think it's very humble to understand the journey, and like you've alluded to lessons there, and you're aware of the lessons. So I think that gives you permission. I don't want to say permission, but allows you to be proud.
Yeah, from what Webby said something about if you've achieved and you don't recognise what you've achieved, later on in life you'll look back and think, well, I should have been proud of myself at that moment. Yeah.
It's about celebrating the journey, isn't it? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm big one on kind of delaying gratification, kind of.
I'm not one to, oh, look at me, haven't I done?
Yeah.
That's not me.
No.
That's not me at all. But yeah, in answer to your question, I think from where I was to where I am, I've probably done better than, I'll have done better than what was expected of me.
That last phrase there is what I can remember from what you said when we were
said before?
Yeah, from what was expected of you at the time. Yes. Yeah. Well,
is it a wrap?
Well, it's been
a
blast.
Have you got any more questions?
No, I'm at the bottom of my page. It's it's been a pleasure. I think it's a hell of an episode. I do, and I know people might think, oh yeah, getting your dad on, but you've got a hell of a story. And I know it, and I've kind of been a part of it. But when I've done this kind of podcast run that I've done, I've kind of taken a step back, as if it was somebody else looking and interviewing you, and kind of I'm reading the facts that I know on the internet, and I'm kind of going, that's how I'm going to get that to run that way, to get it kind of the conversation that I want people to know, if that makes sense, because it's a hell of a story.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, there's been, again, I said it before, I said it at the start, there's been a lot of ups and downs. It's not always been easy, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
You roll with the punches. You know, if you have a good day, tomorrow will probably be better.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it.